construct. It's all the same thing. If you don't understand that, then when you see aliens, then yeah, you get totally bent out of shape because you don't understand where the concept of any of this stuff is coming from. But it's nowhere in the world you're gonna be able to deal or even talk about it if you stuck from the year 2000 up until now. Well, actually 1500 years until now. And that's based on from Jesus to now. Then you won't be able to have any kind of conversation with them because then what do you deal with it? Especially if you say stuff like for instance, there's a guy I was talking with earlier in the month. He was saying that love, there was 5 different expressions of love. There was eros and other things like that. And then I had to stop him because I told him that when he was talking about love, he was using a Greco-Roman ideology of the way love is and the way it's supposed to manifest. And I said, you can't possibly do that with people of African ancestry. Now I said, but then I understand when I say African to black folk, that's a bad word. We don't want to deal with that. I said, you can't possibly place a Greco-Roman ideology on people that were living in South America long before you had ever heard of a Greco-Roman empire. I said, their idea of what is and is not love will be entirely different than what you're using to say is love through a Greco-Roman ideology. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
I said, take into account that if Greco-Roman says God is love. Now we use a mathematical equation to do that. 1 plus 1 is 2. That means a 1 and a 1 is the same thing as 2. Now if God is love, love and God is supposed to be the same thing. So there can't be a weak emotion. It can't be just something that you turn on and turn off whenever you feel like it. It's something else entirely different to that. But through a Greco-Roman ideology, it becomes something that means I want to fuck. Or it means it got something to do with sex, or got something to do, you know, with a mother's love for a child, when the very concept of it all is bigger than all of that and all of it. If you say God is the Father of creation, God is the essence of all things, then you're saying that love is the essence of all things. Because God and love is supposed to be the same thing. So then that means you got to back all the way up and redefine what you call in God and redefine what you call in love. Because right now we know G-O-D, what is it, Gomer Oz Dumar. We already know wisdom, strength, and beauty, how that's supposed to be laid out through certain degrees and things of that nature. However, even with that, you got to go back and redefine, especially when then you're faced with, here are some aliens. There's life on another planet. There's life on the other side of the moon. There's dimensions and things that are out there that we haven't even thought about. Knowledge this. When you look in the sky, every time you see one of them little lights, it's either a planet or a sun. If it's a sun, that means it's got other planets that's already going around it. Now, we can't even count how many we see, especially when you go out into the country where it's clear. You can't even count how many you see up there. So each one of them things has its own solar system and stuff going around it. So imagine if them solar systems had been out there millennia before we were even thought about. We're the babies in here. It could be something that's even younger than us. So now here we are faced with somebody or something that may look like us or may not, but if actually manifested thought differently than the way we have. Does that threaten you?
That is.
Does that make you feel bad that somebody's thought have outthought you? Does it make you feel bad that somebody who may have come in contact with them now use that thought to manipulate you?
That is. Go ahead. Don't stop.
Have you ever thought about the fact that, let's say I was pagan, which is before the Greco-Roman God that we call God, the Judeo-Christian God, but pagan, and they were basing their beliefs off the Dogon system and all these other things. Imagine if those people came in contact with them people long before these other reigns of thought had come about, and then the people's like, you know what? You can use this story that I'm going to give you to manipulate these people to get them to do what you want them to do. And then so we start telling these stories that get us to a point that it's imbued with moral values and ideas that we think are supposed to be wholesome, and then we go from there. Now, in 2,000 years, to people, if you put this on the internet or wherever, just knowledge is thought now. In 2,000 years, if there's no Jesus to be found, but there is a Clark Kent, you're telling those stories now. There's no Jesus to be found, but there is a Logan. There's no Jesus to be found, but there is a Bruce Banner who struggles with the raging and warring against himself. There is no Jesus to be found, but there is a Moreau Storm. There is no Jesus to be found, but there is a God of magnetism that we now call Magneto. There is no God to be found, but there is a Luke Skywalker whose father had came and tried to destroy everything, but then he showed up and became the savior of the world. We're telling these stories now just like they told those stories 2,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. So then now when what we're now believing becomes obsolete, then these new stories
become religion.
Right.
So
and we're making the stories up and telling them now. And then to make it worse, when some child finds somebody's DVD and they say, what is this thing? Like we found in the old scrolls now. What is this thing? And they find some way to play the DVD and then watch what's on the DVD. They will comprehend it differently than the way we're seeing it right now.
Exactly. I don't think that the English language is going to, I think the English language is going to go the way of Latin and Aramaic and Sumerian, and what's the other language? The with the arrows, with the Sumerian, but the other one, I can't think of what it's called right now. But anyway, oh my goodness, man, that is so basically we are in a time right now where we are basically living in a future religion.
We are.
And so we are these people that in a few thousand years, when the language and the civilization has failed and collapsed and it is rediscovered, the perception and the interpretation of what we are doing right now will become another people's religious belief.
Yes. To a point where if you would slow down for a minute and think about it, it's already happening and we just don't know that we're looking at it. 100 years ago, what time was it? The 1920s, right? What took place in the 1920s?
As far as the finances?
No, as far as everything that was going on.
The collapse of the economy, World War I, I think. As far as civil rights is concerned, it was the Reconstruction.
Okay, so because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, meaning African Americans, now 100 years later, somebody else is poised to take your position. Let me explain to you what I mean. In the 1920s, Master Muhammad came around and was teaching people how to read and write. And he used Islam and supreme mathematics and supreme wisdom and all those things to teach those lessons. Okay, and he did that for black people.
You ain't drinking, bro.
Okay, and he did that for black people. Okay, now
Well, you are drinking.
Now, here we are 100 years later, and then there's another race of people that's being treated like that and being dogged out and not given opportunities and things of that nature as well.
Who? What other people other than us?
No, you still being dogged out, but there's a new set of people on the horizon that's equally being persecuted, not equally. I'm sorry, internet, everybody out there be young. Not equally, because our servitude slavery here and through the Middle Passage, nobody else is going to top that, However, they're being prosecuted. And then the children are being taken from the parents and they're not given the opportunity to learn and things of that nature. So they're waiting on a savior to come and do for them that the same thing Noble Drew Ali, Master Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, Father Divine, and all them people did for us. They're waiting on the same thing. Because remember, during that time period, there were a lot of churches that were on the scene that was doing all kind of crazy stuff. And then now, look, where we are right now, you can look at the next two people that are putting themselves in a position to be some kind of prophet or something later on. Kanye West is one of them. Kanye has his own Bible. Kanye has his own, he's now a religious institution, so say the IRS. Kanye got his own choir and got his own following, own clothes, everything. Kanye is doing it right now. Master Farad Muhammad has already did that as well. They different than what we had from 2,000 years ago. We're now in a position right now that any kind of thought that you come up with that's different than what everybody else has seen is now in a position during the 20s, where we are right now, to develop those things into trains of thought or methods of thought that people are not familiar with. Some of the things that people were doing it and we didn't see them doing it, 2,000 years from now, they won't be seen as criminals. They won't be seen like Dr. York. He won't be seen as a criminal 2,000 years from now. If anything he say come to pass, he's not gonna be. He's gonna be like Ellen G. White. He's gonna be like the Seventh-day Adventist. This is where we are right now in this time period. Is what we doing.
Look,
Noble Drew Ali and
is that your charger?
Oh no, I'm good with mine. Yeah, that's mine. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, well, here, let me charge it up. So, I'm listening. Go ahead.
So all of those people that was in the 1920s, if we slow down and look at where we are right now, the way we looking at Farrakhan now is going to be different than the way people going to see him 20 years from now. I mean, the same thing with yes, it is. It's the same thing. It's two of them on the bottom of there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it should be here.
Okay, you do it.
Okay, the same thing with the way we're looking at Farrakhan now. 200 years from now, he's going to be entirely different.
I've been thinking about that. I said, so there's this thing called hindsight, and we don't get to see. Hell, take the brother that just got that got killed in the helicopter thing, right?
Kobe.
Nobody was really, they might have liked the guy, but they didn't really talk about the guy until after he died.
Right.
And then,
well. I mean, if you were in the sports, then yeah, everybody talked about Kobe. If you were in the sports, everybody talked about Kobe.
Okay.
Kobe was, a lot of people don't know Kobe was trained by Michael Jordan and all these different things. Kobe been around for a minute.
Yeah.
Even when Kobe was a kid, Kobe's dad played ball over in Italy. And so so he was
groomed.
Yeah, he was groomed to be who he was. So, yeah, but the whole thing with some Illuminati thing.
Do you think that actually is what happened?
Do people have accidents?
All the time.
All the time. Do people do stuff that end up in somebody dying? All the time. So to think that, yeah, man, you know, if Kobe got a problem with the pharmaceutical companies and stuff like that, and they kill him, no, I do believe certain people are eliminated, assassinated, and things like that. With Kobe, man, I don't know. I don't know, but I do know. Kids left behind, wife left behind. I don't have no issue with the brother. You know, people struggle to become who they are and things of that nature. But I do know Kobe was groomed to be Kobe. It being a basketball player the way he was phenomenal. And he paid homage to, you know, Jordan several times, you know, throughout his career. But thinking that there's now blood sacrifice in order to achieve different things, that means what we're now saying is that there are other entities that got more power than we have, that got more power than you. Like if you doing right, because I decided to do wrong, I got more power over you doing wrong than you do doing right.
So,
And that makes it doesn't add up.
It's so many. It's so see what you just did just now. What you opened up this. Okay, from guns, from gun rights to you just opened up a whole bunch of different stuff, right? So take for instance, and I'm gonna get back on what we were just talking about in a second, but take guns for instance. All right. Because I have a criminal record, I can't legally own a weapon, a firearm.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm considered, in the eyes of the law, a criminal.
Okay.
Okay. You don't have a background.
Okay.
You can own and possess and carry a firearm. Now let's say I was a criminal. Okay. And the state says that we are going to take the guns from people, from people. So now you can't carry a gun, you can't own a gun, and so on and so forth like that.
Okay.
Or you can, but you can only own a certain caliber.
Okay.
But I'm a criminal. I say fuck that. That shit don't apply to me. I'm going to go and get this AR-15 or this AR-10 or this 308 or whatever, Dragunov or whatever I want to get. And I'm gonna go because I can go and just get this shit, right? So here I am. You trying to do good, and by good meaning obey the law, and that makes you powerless. I say fuck the law. I got the power. So because I don't give a fuck about the law, and I'm gonna go get this gun. What is is obeying the law, does obeying the law make you good? Or are you good because you obey the law?
Yeah, clear that up. Because if you're asking me that, what we teach is different than what we do. Because see, we teach.
I told you to ask the question right. I didn't ask the question right.
The Bible teaches, you know, obey your master.
But you going well. You understand what I'm saying because you going there.
However, check this out. But then Jesus
already
defied
go, man.
the very rule that's saying, you know, he was against the system. So then that's where, you know, the conflict come in is that, okay, you know, how do I go against the grain and then, you know, be considered bad when what I'm doing is right? For instance, the Bible says that the church is going to be anti what the Word of God say do. Like the Bible going to say do one thing, and the church going to be doing something else. And you'll know you're in the end of days when stuff like this start coming up. Okay, got it. Well, that's exactly where we are right now, because when you start looking at what was wrong is now right, and what is right is now wrong. So then you going, hey, I'm opposed to this. I don't think this is right. So then the question is, do you accomplish that by going against the system? By telling the system, fuck you, I'm doing this because I know y'all wrong. Well, you can't. The last poets, I think there was the last poets, forgive me everybody if I'm saying it wrong, but the last poets said it perfectly. They said that the revolution will not be televised.
Gil Scott.
Right. So then watching this stuff that we see on the internet and stuff, it's being televised. If you against the system and you don't like the system and you raging against the machine, you can't do that stuff and then be online saying you're gonna do it.
But then 2,000 years from now,
2,000 years now, people will be looking for the people that were online doing it.
and which is the point that you was making earlier, is people like Mr. Louis Farrakhan, people like Khalid Muhammad, people like Cornell.
They will become myths. They will become
They were mythical figures.
They become mythical figures. And then, for lack of a better term, you and I will be lesser prophets. You know, we was like, hey, when so-and-so was going on, so this and this and this was happening. Now, you'll stand a better chance of doing it because your presence on the internet is bigger than mine. You know, me, I just do shit. I'm going out and go, man, we're gonna go rescue these people. We're gonna go do X, Y, Z.
So
it's a little different, but on the same same thing.
So wait. So you saying we'll be on the cross, but we'll be the murderer and the thief on the cross.
Yeah, they gonna be looking at us going like, they gonna be like
Barnabas.
They gonna be like, give us Barabbas. Do you want? Is that they gonna be? You want Jesus or you want Jesus?
You want Khalid? You want Khalid or you want Malik?
Yeah, you be like, hey, you know what? Which one of them gonna give us less of a problem? You know, be like, hey, give us Khalid because you know Malik gonna tear shit up. You know, right? So so then 2,000 years from now, some of the stuff we doing is gonna be seem like it's far-fetched to people. Hell, some of the shit we do now is far-fetched to people.
Yeah.
It's like when I tell people, I'm like, look, man, you ain't gotta wait on nobody to come rescue you. Go rescue your own people. You know, we look at this. Okay, look, the amount of black girls that are now missing across the United States is insane.
60,000 plus.
And nobody's saying nothing about it. Now, this is not anything that just happened. This has been going on for a while, but nobody's saying nothing about it. Now, I tell people some of this stuff has been going on, and then we've been looking at it, and we just don't get it. Like, you call 911, 911 showed up, picked up grandma, take grandma to the hospital. Grandma didn't make it to the hospital. But then we weren't there when they took grandmama's liver or whatever else that was wrong with grandma. Or any other kid that was picked up.
Or 15-year-old James.
Right. So all this stuff has been going on for a minute. And people go, oh man, you don't know, it's the police. Hold on. If I look at the pictures in the 60s, it was the fire department that was spraying the water hoses on the people, not the police department. Of course they were doing it under police department rule, but we don't understand how all those things tie into each other. So that if you start going around right now saying, I want to find a predominantly black fire department, it's going to be hard as hell to find one. And then you say, wait a minute, those are people supposed to be securing everybody's safety. Or finding a predominantly black city or all black city where people have their own police department, own code enforcement, own fire department, own EMS, all them things. That's going to be hard for us to find. And it's because we just don't see ourselves as doing that because we've given that power over to other people.
So here's a bubble.
Every time we defy that, then somebody becomes some type of prophet or becomes some type of icon for the people that's coming on behind them. When we were here, years ago, people who said they was with Farrakhan, some of them are not with Minister Farrakhan right now. And some of them people swore they understood what he was talking about and still didn't get it then and don't get it now. Same thing with a whole lot of other people that come along. But then they'll see 2,000 years from now, they'll be pulling up the record of all the videotapes and all the speeches and stuff he did, all this different stuff, and look at it, and then they'll be judging other people by it. Did you do this? Could you do this? Did you even attempt to do this? You know, and then that'll be the criteria. Same in line. Jesus did this. Did you do this? Did you do this? And then some of us are not going to be recognized. These had 12 disciples. Each one of them wrote a gospel. You only get 4 of them in the King James Version.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same thing. Some of it's going to be written out of history because it's going to be advantageous to not talk about what Malik said or did, but the stuff you did will be passed around in secret societies.
Mm-hmm.
Malik said this.
Mm-hmm.
Malik said, check this out. And that's how a lot of this stuff going to happen.
Malikism.
Yeah.
the dark rights of Malikism or
The esoteric
yeah.
teachings.
Man, look. So you said earlier that I said that us as black men, we have to do a job. We got a job to do. And if the enemy risked his life to fight the superpower at the time, which was England, the Anglo-Saxons that came here to America were basically thrown here, and the criminals and the people they unloaded the jails in England and said, y'all go over there, and if y'all survive, great, and if you survive, you need to send taxes back to us, right? Okay, so these people came over here and killed up these people that was already here and made a country for themselves and for their families. So that's what these white people did. And then they defied the powers that be from their homeland and said, we will fucking fight you to the death to keep secure what we have built. Mm-hmm. Now, that's what our enemy has done. Here we are as black men, we're men too. Genetically, we are superior to every man on the planet. There's no question about that. But we will only go as high as the ceiling of what they created. We won't break through the ceiling. For some reason, we won't break through the ceiling and create or rebuild or build or hell, destroy what they have done.
We will. We will.
But why haven't we done that now?
You got 400 more years.
No, fuck that. No. We ain't got no. How we got 400 more years of what?
Okay, look. Okay.
Hell no.
Now.
Hell no. Hell no.
Now. Let's talk for real.
Okay.
Okay. We didn't get this way overnight. The same amount of time it took for us to get this way is going to take almost or equal to the same amount of time for us to undo it. Because we've been complacent for so long, we've forgotten what it's like to be free. If we had our own country right now, we'd be a mini America. And it wouldn't be long before we would be a colony of America all over again because of our train of thought. Like we said earlier, it's going to take our seed to be able to conceive something that we can't even get there. You and me going to have to die in order for that realization to take place. We have to keep teaching and talking and struggling and keep saying this thing needs to happen, this thing needs to happen. But then when we die, somebody will hear or read something that we said or did and then be like, you know what? It's time. Now, if it took us 400 years to get here, it's going to take us 400 years to get out of this mess. Now, because most of us, we can't even tell you why we in this mess.
So I read somewhere, I don't know where, but I read somewhere that if slavery, or not just slavery, but if white integration or Anglo or European integration happened at a certain time, up until that point, it will take about, up until the point of where I read that, it said that it would take 1,500 years for us to undo all that has been done in 500 years.
Right, at our present rate, right.
Yeah, and so it said, the guy basically said, I'm trying to remember exactly what I read, but I'm just going to paraphrase it. If we have 500 years of experience with white people or Anglo people, it will take us 1,500 years, which equals to 2,000 years total, to undo what they have done in 500 years. Mm-hmm. And then you just said 400 more years, and I'm like,
do you understand why? Because now we're perpetuating the stuff that they put in us. They don't have to do nothing. We're doing it to ourselves now.
And so in the Bible, I hate having to keep going back there, but in the Bible, when Moses went to free the people from Israel, from Egypt, mm-hmm. when they did the Exodus, they spent 40 years in the desert. And I've always said that that was a reason why they spent that many years in the desert, mm-hmm. when it was really a 6-day trip, right, from Egypt to where they wanted to go. The reason they spent the 40 years there is because he had to go through 2 generations of deprogramming, right, to get them to, like you said, and I hate to admit it, but if they would have went straight from Egypt to the land of milk and honey, there'd have been a new Egypt. Yeah. And so they would have
called it New Egypt.
Probably. And so they had to basically get deprogrammed and go in there with and it was evident when Moses left them and got the commandments. And when he came back, they had already built a calf, right, a golden calf, and was trying to live like they was in Egypt. I go with that. I accept that. I don't want to accept 400 more years, man.
I don't either.
So these white folks. I
don't either.
I don't want to say it on the thing because I don't want it to be evidence, but.
Then don't say it.
I ain't gonna say it.
All I'm gonna do is say this. Let me say this. Look. It took us 400 years to get into this. Same way like it took, and then they 40 years is just symbolic. About mm-hmm. 400 years mm-hmm. that we're going to need to be deprogrammed. We haven't even started deprogramming yet.
Oh my God.
The first time, look, we haven't even conceived of what we could possibly do until we sit down and theoretically and for entertainment purposes only, when you watch the movie The Black Panther and then you see Wakanda being completely devoid and independent of everybody else, that was the first time those of us who had not read comic books, those of us who had not even entertained that thought, that's the first time we'd ever seen anything like that before in our life. Those of us who have been reading in comic books and thinking and talking to each other, we've been conceived it could be something as great as that. But now, that's only been a couple of years since people first saw something and was like, what if? So now, that thought just started.
So a spark.
Just a spark. That's all you got. You got one spark. And then you got other people, and we're letting them do their own downfall. Because now we're starting to see, like the stuff like when the reporter wanted to come out and say something against Kobe and talk about. Then we say, okay, we're starting to see who for us and who's against us. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see what media outlets are for us and which ones are against us. And as we continue to look at it, things begin to get different. Ghana, or one of the countries in Africa, is now saying you can have dual citizenship. Akon, the recording artist, is now over there talking about, I want to build a city over there. So we're now conceiving it just now. So 400 years from now, Akon gonna be gone. You and me will be gone. But our kids or our grandkids and our great-great-grandkids and our great-great-great-grandkids are then be walking into that now going, you know what? We need a United States of Africa. Those things are going to be reality within the next 2 to 3 generations. Not during our time period, because we still sucking off America's nipple. We still
squabbling.
Yeah.
We're still squabbling.
We still doing it, right? So all of us that's infighting and mad with each other, we're gonna have to die off. We're gonna have to die off. The revolution gonna have to completely be dead, and somebody's gonna pick up a book and read and go, you're a damn lie. We don't have to live like this. Look at what they said 300 years ago. Look at what they said 1,000 years ago. And that will spark a whole new thing, because we're going to have to go through another level of suffering again, because right now we trying to be everybody else but us.
Well, let me ask you this question. There is this growing scientific concept and a political concept or social concept called zero population growth. And zero population growth means that there are more people dying than there are being born in a certain group of people. So right now you have, and the group of people I'm talking about is white people, and so white people are saying that there are more white people dying than there are being born, so they can't maintain the numbers of white people. So in 300 and 400 years, if zero population now continues at the rate that it's going, and so if it continues in 300 to 400 years, will they even be here?
Tomorrow, people that
White
are
people.
that are non-white,
Zero population.
people that are not of color, people that are colonizers and all whatever you want to put on.
Yeah.
And look, there will be some. There will always be some anomaly, some gene, something's gonna come up.
They won't be extinct.
Right, but the vast majority of people will be of light brown complexion, will be dark hair, curly hair, or straight.
Brown-eyed.
Yeah, brown-eyed, so on and so forth. It will be like one race, and a lot of it will take a throwback to us having the darker skin, which makes those genes dominant, and then you'll see dark skinned babies, brown skinned babies, light brown babies, but all of them will pretty much look kind of the same. And that's what a lot of people who have said, forget that. Race wise, we're not gonna win. But as a culture and a government wise or a ruling class wise, we could still win. And so that's what the last ditch effort is now, to create a ruling class that deals with economics. Because think about this, America is now a consuming nation. We buy most of our goods from everybody else. So that now we either consume or we're a service being on to each other. Not to another nation, but to each other. So there has to be a permanent underclass in order for these things to work. So just like you will always have some dark-skinned people somewhere in America that will be here for service, you're going to have somebody on the opposite spectrum that's here that's going to be trying to rule. Those dark-skinned people, somebody got to make the fries at McDonald's. Somebody got to fry the chicken at KFC. Somebody got to go and pick the peaches off the tree. And those middle-class people, those brown-skinned people, not going to do it. So it's going to fall to a set of people to be the underclass. And so the way the government is set up, it is designed to let people fall into their class and not provide you a way to get out of their class, because they need you to keep being a part of their class. So I give you inferior education. I'll create the laws that are designed to get you into the justice system. I will do things to put you at a disadvantage. So your only advantage is to do a criminal activity that when you get caught, you get put back into the system. If you manage to not get caught, I have served you unhealthy foods, unhealthy things to put you back into the system as a consumer through the medical field. However, you never come out of that permanent underclass. You stay there. You stay there. Even the medicines and stuff that I'm going to give you, it's going to be, substandard medicine. The care, substandard medicine. Education, substandard. Everything is going to be below the thing. And they're not going to even know that there should be an outcry, because the rest of the world is not going to even address it.
There is.
I offer as example Detroit. Is it Detroit with the water problem?
Flint, Michigan.
Flint. And we have still, not as a culture of Americans, addressed drinking water, and there are newborn babies being born in Flint. So what is it going to do? The lead in the water and the stuff in the water is going to produce people with brain damage or be mentally inept to do certain things. That's part of your permanent underclass. If they can't figure out how to run that machine or do those programs, I got some service stuff for you to do. The hard labor, not cleaning up, because I'm gonna have a robot or Android to do that.
That's
That's what?
that
Real?
is that yes, absolutely. So in India, what you're talking about is the classism that happens in India, where the dark-skinned Indians are the underclass. They call the untouchables, and the light-skinned or the British-skinned Indians are the ruling class.
Right.
And so in America, the same thing will in the. So I don't want to use an analogy because that'll throw me off, but I'm gonna have to use this analogy. You take a big ass ship on the ocean, and that ship is guided by a small rudder, right? In relative size to the ship itself, and so the rudder in the social scheme, the rudder is going to be the light skinned, white skinned people, and
Kind of, sort of. But
the
I'm
middle
still
class,
coming from
the middle
that.
class is going to be the lighter but the dark skinned people, and then the dark skinned people are going to end up being the people that are the they are so expendable that basically it's slavery all over
Right.
again.
It's all over again. Because, and the reason why, because America has taught everybody that slavery works. You just have to make the people think that they're free, but slavery does work. Now, just come on. You get 200 years of free labor. Yeah, you built the entire economy off these people. So it's going to be a while before we decide, before we stop, and then say, let's make a change. Those of us that are here right now, we have to live and die off. And then somebody gonna pick up a videotape or a DVD, or they're gonna
Read a book.
some in the
Obscure
cloud.
book, yeah.
Something gonna come down, and then one person gonna get it, and then they're gonna be it. And listen, we are poison. We're putting the people in a position for that to take place. And our present day prophets and storytellers and writers are telling us this is going to take place. We just don't know it when we see it. This is the whole thing that the Matrix was about. It was like Neo went looking for some obscure teaching from somebody that the rest of the system was saying was some kind of, truth terrorist, some black history hitman, some, rogue scholar. And then once he got it, he was like, hey, man, this the bomb. And then once he had to manifest it himself, and he did, then he was like, I want to tell everybody. I want to free everybody. And then there's wait a minute. Some people you can't free. Because they going to fight you for it. So he had to learn them lessons himself. And the same stuff is going to happen again. That's a age-old story that's being told. And again, Neo gonna be the next Jesus Christ in 2000 years.
Neo. It's funny. Neo, what's the word I'm looking for? The word I'm looking for is when you can't read the words right. When you can't read the words right on paper. Why? I just have a brain fart sometimes, man.
When they have dyslexia.
Dyslexic, right? So Neo is a dyslexic word for one.
Right, it's the one.
And I've always thought about that. And Neo is also a word for new. And you shouldn't have started with the Matrix, man, because that's my shit.
And then to a point where Cypher, which is supposed to be Lucifer, but he still was not the most powerful one in there. Somebody else was pulling Lucifer's string. So what's that saying about the devil now? He's not really that powerful. Somebody else pulling the gin strings.
Which by the way,
out.
hold on. Before you said, okay, because we talked about this the other day. So I looked at Sabrina, right? I looked at 2-3 episodes of Sabrina.
Which one? The one that's out. Did you watch the whole season or you just watched?
No, I just watched 2 or 3 episodes, but I had to stop when they got to the faggot shit.
Okay, now wait a minute. Did you watch the first season? Because I think
Season one.
Okay, all of that stuff is new thought of what they're wanting it to be personified right there in a television show. That's the ideal situation that they would want to have done. Because think about this: has population control ever been used before in the world?
Yeah.
Okay. Think about every time it's been used in the world, who used it and why. Then yes, you will watch television and then you will see alternative lifestyles being put there. You'll see all these other things being played out, not because they think that it's ideal, not because they want to be fair, but there's a purpose behind it. It's a purpose-driven thing. So, and then that takes place with everything, even the television show Sabrina. It's a purpose-driven thing. So if you say, you know what, I see this. Now the thing is, they put this there and make me so mad that I can't see it. I don't even watch it. Forget that stuff. So then guess what? Now you ain't see it, but to the other people who was like,
okay, all right,
I'm gonna watch this and see what they talking about. Then you start going, holy shit!
Okay.
I can't believe y'all put all this on TV like this.
Okay, I'll watch
because certain people getting it. Listen, there are several shows they did like that. There are several shows that did like that. There's a show that they got out there talking about one consciousness, that all of the people are connected. I don't have to come and talk to Malik physically right here. Mm-hmm. I can call Malik from the other side of town, and then I say, Malik, I really need your help. I really need your help. And then Malik show up, be like, what you need, man? Say, listen, you know all the martial arts you was taking? I need you to imbue those attributes in me because I need to kick this dude's ass over here. Then you say, all right, I got it. Then all of a sudden, I start doing kung fu and shit, and people say, where the fuck you get that from? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, man, you know, that's through my boy Malik. Mm-hmm. There are television shows on TV that's talking about that right now, that after they did the second season of that show, they shut that shit down.
Cut it off.
They said that shit down quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I think I know what you're talking about. I seen something when you was talking about the interconnectedness of people. I saw something recently. I can't remember what it's called. But that sounds like something I saw recently.
Yeah. So this stuff is out there, and people are trying to tell. Again, these people are present day prophets. When you see this stuff 2,000 years from now, they're gonna be saying, just like we talk about Einstein. Einstein said, it's going to be the mother of the Matrix said, the mother of Terminator said, the father of this thing said, and so on and so forth.
Can you imagine that shit, man? 2,000 years, 3,000 years from now, man, somebody's going to have a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger on the fucking wall saying that he's the fucking devil or some shit.
Or,
Yeah. All right, fam, that's, I had to stop right now because I get too excited. I get carried away. So, restroom. No. Right there. That first door right there, yeah. All right. I'll edit this and go on from there. Peace.